Have you ever had that day when everything seems to go wrong? That moment when a simple comment or even a sideways glance seems to trigger a whirlwind of negative emotions? The truth is that in the frenetic world we live in, we all face situations like this. We are constantly challenged by deadlines, differing opinions, interpersonal conflicts, and often even by our own expectations. These situations can easily cause us to lose control over our emotions. But what if there was a way to remain calm, unshakable, and resilient, no matter what happens around us? What if you could live a life where your inner peace didn't depend on external circumstances? The good news is that this way of living exists, and it's not a new secret. It's a time-tested approach developed by some of history's wisest minds. I'm talking about Stoicism, a practical and powerful philosophy that emerged more than 2,000 years ago and continues to transform lives. Great Stoics like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca faced challenges that would make our biggest problems seem trivial. Yet they figured out how to maintain calm, clarity, and peace, even in the midst of chaos. And today I want to share with you what I've learned from this philosophy. Specifically, I'll share 7 practical methods based on Stoicism that can help you transform your emotional life and achieve lasting peace. The best part is that these aren't abstract theories. They're lessons that you can apply to your everyday life right now. So if you're tired of being held hostage by your emotions or the behavior of others, this video is for you. Get ready, because even a small change in the way you approach challenges can bring about big changes. Shall we begin? Method 1. Accept life willingly. Life is full of ups and downs. Sometimes it seems like everything is going well, but then something unexpected happens. A plan is canceled, a project fails, or someone acts in a way that disappoints us. In moments like these, our first reaction may be to resist. We get angry, complain, or try to force things to fit our expectations. But in reality, this resistance only makes the problem worse. Stoicism teaches us that accepting life with good grace is one of the keys to inner peace. This does not mean being passive or resigned, but learning to flow with reality rather than fighting it. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest proponents of this philosophy, wrote, "Accept the things to which fate unites you, and love the people with whom fate brings you." This means that instead of wasting energy fighting against what we cannot change, we should learn to embrace each moment, whether it is pleasant or challenging. Imagine, for example, that you had planned a perfect day outdoors, but then the weather forecast changes and it starts to rain. You have 2 choices. You can spend the day feeling irritated and complaining about something you can't control, or you can adjust your plans and find a way to enjoy the day indoors. The choice is yours, and accepting the situation with grace turns what could have been a bad day into an opportunity to create something new. This principle of acceptance also applies to mundane, everyday tasks. Consider something as simple as washing the dishes. If you approach the task with resistance, thinking about how boring and repetitive it is, it becomes an even greater burden. But if you adopt an attitude of gratitude, realizing that having dishes to wash means you've had a meal, the same task can become light and even satisfying. Acceptance doesn't mean you shouldn't work to improve your life or the situations around you. On the contrary, it allows you to reserve your energy for what really matters. As Epictetus said, "Do not seek to have things happen as you wish, but will them to happen as they happen, and your life will be peaceful. How to practice. Acceptance. Reframe. Challenging situations. The next time you face something unpleasant, ask yourself, how can I learn or grow from this? For example, if you're stuck in traffic, use the time to listen to an inspiring podcast or think about something you're grateful for. Take a bigger picture. Oftentimes we resist because we're too focused on the short term. Ask yourself, what's my bigger purpose? When you take a bigger picture, you realize that small inconveniences aren't as big a deal as they seem. Accept people as they are. Just like situations, the people around us can also frustrate us. Instead of trying to change them, practice accepting them with their flaws and qualities. This does not mean tolerating abuse or injustice, but choosing not to let other people's behavior disturb your peace. Practical exercise. Choose a specific situation this week where you would normally feel frustrated or resisted. It could be something small like waiting in line at the grocery store, or something bigger like dealing with criticism at work. Instead of reacting negatively, practice acceptance. Ask yourself, how can I approach this with more grace and grace? When you begin to embrace life with openness, you're not just eliminating unnecessary stress, you're cultivating an inner freedom. You realize that even in the midst of challenges, you have the power to choose how you respond. And over time, this acceptance becomes one of the strongest pillars of your emotional peace. Method 2. Stop judging others. How often do you find yourself thinking, this person is so annoying, or why does he do everything wrong? It's natural to judge. We do it automatically, whether we're in traffic, at work, or even at home. But while these judgments may seem harmless, they're one of the biggest sources of our negative emotions. Every time you label someone as incompetent, rude, or disrespectful, you're carrying unnecessary emotional weight. Stoicism teaches us that the root of irritation and anger lies in our own perceptions. It is not people's actions that directly affect us, but the meaning we attribute to them. Epictetus summed it up perfectly. It is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Imagine this. You're driving and someone in front of you is driving slowly. Your immediate judgment might be, what a terrible driver. He's deliberately slowing me down. This thought can lead to frustration and sometimes even aggression. But what if you changed your perspective? Maybe this person is a new driver, or maybe they're being cautious because there's a child in the car. When you replace judgment with empathy, your frustration can dissolve. Why do we judge so much? Judging others is a way of projecting our expectations onto them. We think that people should act the way we would, but we forget that each individual has their own story, challenges, and way of seeing the world. When someone acts outside of what we expect, we quickly label them as lazy, irresponsible, selfish. But do we really understand what is going on in that person's life? Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you always have the option of having no opinion about something. There is no need to agitate or disturb your soul over things that are beyond your control. This doesn't mean we should ignore harmful or unfair behavior, but there's a difference between approaching a situation with clarity and reacting with impulsive judgments that only increase our emotional discomfort. How to stop judging. Practice pausing. Whenever you feel the urge to judge someone, take a deep breath and ask yourself, am I seeing the whole story? A small moment of pausing can completely change your perspective. Replace judgment with curiosity. Instead of thinking, "What an incompetent person," ask yourself, "What could be going on with them that I don't know about?" For example, if a coworker is constantly late, instead of labeling them as irresponsible, consider that they may be struggling with personal issues. Remember your own flaws. We've all made mistakes or acted inconsistently. If we want others to be understanding of us, why not offer the same? A practical example. Imagine you're at work and a coworker forgets to complete an important task, delaying a project. Your first reaction might be, "He's so irresponsible. Why doesn't he do what he's supposed to do?" But before you let that judgment take over, stop and think. Is he going through something difficult? Was there a misunderstanding in the communication? Instead of confronting him in anger, take a more understanding approach. "I noticed that the task didn't get done. Is there anything I can do to help prevent this from happening again?" This not only preserves your inner peace, but it also strengthens your relationship. Benefits of letting go of judgment. When you stop judging, something amazing happens. You feel lighter. The weight of anger, irritation, and frustration lifts, giving way to empathy and understanding. This not only improves your relationships, but also your own quality of life. After all, judgment doesn't affect others. It primarily affects you. Seneca wrote, "The best kind of revenge is to be unlike the one who caused the harm." In other words, if someone has acted in a way that you consider inappropriate, instead of judging and responding with anger, choose to respond with clarity and dignity. Practical exercise. For an entire day, try to notice how often you judge others, in traffic, at work, or even at home. Each time you notice yourself making a judgment, replace it with a question. Do I know the whole story? Or, what might this person be struggling with? At the end of the day, reflect on how this practice has affected your mood and outlook. When we stop judging, we free ourselves. We no longer carry the burden of unmet expectations or negative interpretations. Instead, we create space for empathy, patience, and inner peace. After all, how you choose to see the world is what defines how you feel in it. Method 3. Release control. How many times have you felt frustrated because something didn't go as expected? Maybe you planned a perfect meeting, but something unexpected happened. Or you tried to convince someone of a point of view, but failed. This constant desire to control the world around us is one of the greatest sources of human suffering. The truth is that most of what happens in life is beyond our control. The behavior of others, external circumstances, and even seemingly small things like the weather cannot be changed by our will. Yet we spend an enormous amount of energy trying to control the uncontrollable, which leads to feelings of frustration, anger, and helplessness. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what is truly within our control: our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not over external events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Why do we try to control everything? The desire for control often comes from our own insecurities. We think that if we can shape the world around us, we will be protected from disappointment and frustration. But the reality is that trying to control everything is like trying to hold sand in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the more you slip away. By letting go of control, you are not giving up or becoming passive. Instead, you are choosing to focus your energy on what you can truly change. It is an act of wisdom and liberation. A common example. Imagine you're driving in heavy traffic. The car in front of you keeps stopping, drivers are cutting you off without warning, and you realize you're going to be late. Your first reaction might be to complain, honk, or get stressed out about the situation. After all, why don't people drive better? Why doesn't traffic flow? But if you stop and think about it, you'll realize that you can't control the behavior of other drivers or the density of traffic. The only thing that's within your control is how you choose to react. Instead of wasting energy on anger and frustration, you can accept the situation as it is and use it as an opportunity to listen to an interesting podcast or simply enjoy the moment of rest. The benefits of letting go of control. When you let go of control, something transformative happens. Frustration dissolves. You realize that you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Instead, you can invest your energy in what really matters, like your choices and actions. Epictetus reminds us, some things are within our control and others are not. The distinction between them is the basis of wisdom. This wisdom not only reduces your stress, but it also improves your relationships. When you stop trying to control other people's actions or opinions, you give them the space to be themselves, which can strengthen your connections. How to practice. Letting go of control. Identify what's in your control. Whenever you're faced with a stressful situation, ask yourself, is this in my control? If it's not, let it go. For example, you may not control your boss's decisions, but you can control how you handle them. Embrace the unpredictable. Every day, something can go wrong. Prepare yourself mentally for this by adopting the Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum. Before you start your day, imagine possible setbacks and think about how you will face them with equanimity. Reset your expectations. Much of the desire for control comes from unrealistic expectations. Adjust your expectations to reflect reality, not perfection. Practical exercise. Think about something that has upset you recently. It could be a delay, an argument, or someone's mistake. Ask yourself, could I have controlled this? If the answer is no, consider how you might handle similar situations differently in the future. Simply acknowledging what is out of your control can alleviate a lot of your stress. Letting go of control is more than a habit. It's a mindset shift. By focusing on what you can change, your thoughts, emotions, and attitudes, you reclaim a power that is truly yours. Inner peace comes not from controlling the world, but from controlling how you navigate it. Like a current, life is constantly flowing. When you learn to go with the flow, rather than fighting it, you discover the freedom and serenity you've always sought. Method 4. Embrace imperfection. The pursuit of perfection is one of the biggest traps we face. We often demand that people act in the right way, that situations unfold without error, or that we ourselves never fail. But is this realistic? Or worse, is it fair? Stoicism teaches us that imperfection is the nature of the world. Everything, from the people around us to ourselves, is imperfect. And the sooner we accept this, the less suffering we create for ourselves. As Epictetus wrote, it is not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters. Accepting imperfection does not mean giving up on improving, but recognizing that mistakes and failures are inevitable parts of life. Why do we fight imperfection? Often the root of our frustration is an unrealistic expectation that the world should conform to our standards. If a coworker doesn't perform as expected, we get angry. If a friend forgets an appointment, we feel hurt. But the truth is that no one, not even us, is immune to mistakes. Accepting imperfection does not mean approving harmful or negligent behavior. It does mean, however, that we choose not to let ourselves be consumed by the mistakes of others, or even by our own mistakes. An example of everyday life. Imagine you've prepared an important presentation at work. You've spent hours making sure everything is flawless. But at the last minute, a colleague responsible for a part of the project makes a mistake, and the end result doesn't turn out as planned. Your natural reaction might be anger or frustration. How could he mess this up after all my effort? However, viewed through a Stoic lens, you realize that his failure is beyond your control. Instead of reacting negatively, ask yourself, how can I fix this now? How can I learn from this situation for the future? This change in perspective not only preserves your inner peace, but also helps you find solutions more effectively. Accepting imperfection in relationships. In relationships, the demand for perfection can be even more damaging. We expect our partners or friends to understand our needs perfectly, to never make mistakes, or to always act according to our expectations. But do we do the same for them? Do we never make mistakes or fail? Seneca reminds us, "He who is brave is free." Courage to face imperfections is a freedom that many never achieve. This includes the courage to forgive the shortcomings of others and to accept that no one is perfect, not even those we love. For example, if a friend forgets to return your call, instead of assuming they don't care, try to remember that they may be busy or dealing with something difficult. This mindset shift reduces unnecessary conflict and strengthens the bond between you. How to practice. Acceptance of imperfection. Reevaluate your expectations. Ask yourself, am I expecting something realistic from this person or situation? Adjusting your expectations to reflect reality can alleviate much of the frustration. Find the value in failure. Every mistake or failure contains a lesson. Instead of focusing on what went wrong, ask, what can I learn from this? For example, if something didn't go as planned, it may reveal areas that can be improved in the future. Practice self-compassion. Don't be so hard on yourself. Just as you accept the imperfections of others, remember to accept your own. After all, to err is human, and every mistake is an opportunity for growth. Practical exercise. Pick a recent situation where you were frustrated by someone else's mistake or your own. Reflect, why did this bother me so much? And how can I respond in a more understanding and constructive way next time? Make a conscious effort to accept and learn from the situation. Accepting imperfection is an act of courage and compassion. It is recognizing that the world and the people around us, as well as ourselves, are always under construction. When you stop expecting perfection, you discover something extraordinary: lightness. The weight of frustration and disappointment disappears, giving way to empathy, patience, and gratitude. After all, it is in imperfections that we find humanity, and it is by accepting them that we find true peace. Method 5. Take responsibility for your emotions. How many times have you said or thought something like, "He made me so angry," or "She made me feel that way"? It's common to believe that our emotions are caused by other people or external circumstances. But is this really true? Stoicism teaches us that no one has the power to control how we feel, except ourselves. As Epictetus wisely observed, men are disturbed not by things, but by the opinions they have of them. In other words, what truly determines how we feel is not what happens around us, but how we choose to interpret and react to those events. Taking responsibility for your emotions is liberating. It means recognizing that while you can't control what others say or do, you always have the power to choose your emotional response. Why is blaming others so tempting? It's easier to blame others' behavior than to look inward and admit that our reactions are our own choices. After all, it seems obvious. Of course I was angry, he was rude to me. But by blaming others for how we feel, we are essentially giving them control over our emotional state. The problem is that by doing this, we become prisoners of other people's actions and words. Any little provocation, comment, or behavior can throw us off balance. Taking responsibility for our emotions gives us back that control, allowing our inner peace to no longer depend on what happens externally. A common example. Imagine you're in line at the grocery store and someone cuts in front of you without asking permission. Your immediate reaction might be to feel angry and think, "How disrespectful, he ruined my day." But is that really true? Does this small incident really have the power to ruin your day? Or is it your interpretation of it that's causing you to feel uncomfortable? If you stop and think about it, you'll realize that you can choose to react differently. You might think, "That person must be in a hurry," or you might even ignore what happened. At that moment, you regain control of the situation and maintain your peace of mind. The power of choice. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by something external, the pain is not caused by the thing itself, but by your perception of it, and this you can change at any moment." This realization is the key to living with greater serenity. Recognizing that you have the power to choose your emotions is like taking back control of your life. As you practice this idea, you begin to realize that no one can make you feel anything. If someone criticizes you, you can choose to feel hurt or see it as a learning opportunity. If someone ignores you, you can decide whether or not it really matters. How to take responsibility for your emotions. Practice. Pausing. When something is bothering you, take a deep breath and ask yourself, "Why is this affecting me? Is it really what happened, or how I'm interpreting the situation?" Often just realizing that your emotions are chosen, reactions can reduce the intensity of the feeling. Reflect on your patterns. Make a conscious effort to identify recurring situations in which you feel angry, hurt, or frustrated. Is there a pattern? What beliefs or expectations are fueling these emotions? Reframe the situation. Replace thoughts like, "This is unbearable" with, "This is inconvenient, but I can handle it." This simple shift in perspective can completely transform your emotional experience. Practical exercise. At the end of each day, take 5 minutes to reflect on times when you lost control of your emotions. Ask yourself, why did I react that way? What could I have done differently? Over time, this practice will help you identify patterns and strengthen your ability to respond more consciously. Taking responsibility for your emotions isn't easy, especially at first. It takes practice, patience, and a genuine willingness to grow. But the benefits are immense. You become less reactive, more confident, and more resilient. Remember, the actions of others can be unpredictable and sometimes unfair, but your emotional response is always your choice. When you embrace this truth, you discover an inner strength that no one can take away from you. After all, your peace depends on no one but yourself. Method 6. Practice. Non-reaction. Have you ever noticed how we often react impulsively when something upsets or offends us? Maybe it's an unexpected comment, a rude tone of voice, or even a minor action that sparks our anger or frustration. These moments of instant reaction may seem inevitable, but are they really? Stoicism teaches us the importance of practicing non-reaction. Instead of being held hostage by our emotions or responding in the heat of the moment, we can learn to pause, reflect, and choose how to act, or sometimes not act at all. As Epictetus wisely put it, it is not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters. Why do we react impulsively? Reacting impulsively is often a defense mechanism. We feel that by reacting immediately, we are protecting our dignity or righting an injustice. However, these quick reactions rarely solve the problem. In fact, they often make it worse. A thoughtless word can lead to unnecessary arguments, while a defensive attitude can escalate the tension in a situation. Furthermore, reacting automatically makes us vulnerable to control by others. When someone provokes or insults us, and we react immediately, we are essentially allowing that person to dictate our emotions and actions. The power of non-reaction. Practicing non-reaction does not mean being passive or accepting harmful behavior. Rather, it means regaining control over yourself and consciously choosing the best way to deal with the situation. As Seneca said, the best remedy for anger is delay. Imagine that during a meeting, a colleague publicly criticizes your work. Your instinctive reaction might be to defend yourself or even attack back. But when you practice non-reaction, you pause for a moment and think, how can I respond to this in a way that preserves my calm and my image? Instead of reacting impulsively, you choose to respond clearly, thanking them for their feedback and saying that you will consider their point. This approach not only avoids unnecessary conflict, but also demonstrates maturity and self-control. How to practice non-reaction. Pause before responding. When someone provokes or offends you, take a deep breath and count to 3 before responding. This pause creates space between the stimulus and your reaction, allowing you to choose how to respond. Reflect on real meaning. Ask yourself, what does this situation really mean? Is it as important as it seems now? Often we realize that what upsets us in the moment will have no real impact on our lives. Choose silence. When necessary, not every provocation deserves a response. Sometimes silence is the best way to keep your peace and show that you will not be manipulated by another person's emotions. Practice delayed responses. If you receive a critical message or email, resist the urge to respond immediately. Wait an hour or even a day before crafting your response. This time allows you to approach the situation with more clarity and less emotion. A common example. Imagine you're in a line and someone cuts you off without a care in the world. Your instinctive reaction might be to immediately confront the person, perhaps even aggressively. But when you practice non-reaction, you take a deep breath and consider, is this really worth losing my peace over? Often when you choose not to react, you realize that the incident isn't as significant as it seemed in the heat of the moment. The benefits of non-reaction. Practicing non-reaction has a powerful effect on your life. First, you preserve your inner peace, even in challenging situations. Second, you avoid unnecessary conflict and maintain healthier relationships. And lastly, you demonstrate emotional strength and self-control, traits that not only improve your image but also inspire those around you. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by something external, the pain is not caused by the thing itself, but by your perception of it. And this you can change at any time." Non-reaction is the practice of this principle in action. It is the choice to prioritize your peace over giving in to chaos. Practical exercise. Over the next week, identify a situation in which you would normally react impulsively. It could be a criticism, a provocation, or even a minor inconvenience, such as someone cutting in line. Instead of reacting, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, is this really worth my attention and energy? Notice how your choice not to react affects your calmness and your perception of the event. Practicing non-reaction is not just a skill. It's an act of courage and self-mastery. By choosing to pause instead of react, you take control of your emotions and your life. And over time, you'll discover that true strength lies not in responding quickly, but in remaining calm in the face of chaos. After all, it's not what others do that matters, but how you choose to respond. Method 7. Find joy in altruism. Once you learn to stay calm and not react impulsively, you may ask yourself, what's next? What do I do with this serenity I've been cultivating? The answer lies in one of the most beautiful principles of Stoicism: altruism. When you choose to help others, even without expecting anything in return, something transformative happens. Your soul finds joy. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, wrote, "When you rise in the morning, think of the privilege of being alive, of breathing, of loving, and of helping others." He recognized that true happiness comes not from what we accumulate for ourselves, but from what we offer to the world. Why does altruism bring happiness? Helping others has a positive impact, not only on their lives, but on yours as well. When you act with kindness, your heart opens, your worries ease, and you feel more connected to the world. Modern psychology research confirms this. People who engage in acts of altruism report higher levels of happiness and life satisfaction. Stoicism teaches us that altruism is also a way to cultivate inner peace. When we choose to help, instead of reacting with anger or frustration, we are demonstrating that we control our emotions and that we prefer to contribute to the collective good. Forgiveness as part of altruism. Altruism also means forgiving. We often carry resentment for the actions of others. However, as Epictetus reminds us, no man is free who is not master of himself. Forgiveness is a way to free your soul from the burden of resentment. Imagine that a friend has deeply hurt you by forgetting an important appointment. Your initial reaction might be to hold a grudge, but when you practice selflessness, you try to look beyond the action. Was he or she dealing with something difficult? Was this an oversight rather than intentional? When you forgive, you're not just helping the other person. You're also releasing an emotional burden that only hurts you. Altruism in everyday life. Helping others doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Often it's the small actions that have the biggest impact. For example, at work, offering help to a colleague who is overwhelmed. In the community, hold the door for someone or offer a smile to a stranger. In the family, taking time to listen to a relative or helping with a simple task without being asked. These small acts of kindness can make someone's day, and yours too. How to practice altruism consciously. Start with intention. When you wake up, ask yourself, how can I help someone today? It doesn't have to be something big. Even a kind word can make a difference. Give without expecting. Anything in return. True altruism is that which does not seek reward. If you help expecting something in return, the focus shifts to yourself and the emotional impact diminishes. Look for needs around you. Be on the lookout for small opportunities to help. Maybe a colleague needs support, or a friend needs a word of encouragement.
Practice forgiveness. When someone hurts you, ask yourself, is this resentment worth carrying? Often the act of forgiveness is the most powerful form of selflessness.
An inspiring example. I remember a story I heard about a man in a competitive office. He worked in a high-pressure environment where people were often competing with one another. One day, a colleague was late for an important report and seemed on the verge of a breakdown. Instead of taking advantage of the situation to shine, the man offered to help, even though his own deadline was tight. His act of kindness did not go unnoticed. Not only did his colleague thank him, but he also began helping him in the future. This simple gesture created a culture of collaboration in the workplace and strengthened the bonds between them. The benefits of altruism. Practicing altruism brings a series of benefits. Reduces stress by taking your focus away from your own problems. Improves relationships by creating a cycle of trust and empathy. It fills your life with meaning because you realize you are contributing to something bigger. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for goodness." Practical exercise. Today, choose one person. It could be someone close to you or a stranger, and do something kind for them. It could be something as simple as a sincere compliment, or something more meaningful, like offering to help with a task. At the end of the day, reflect, how did it make me feel to help someone? The joy of altruism lies in its simplicity. It doesn't require wealth, power, or status, just an open heart and a willingness to make a difference. When you make this practice a part of your life, you'll discover that by helping others, you're also helping yourself. After all, kindness is contagious, and every small act of altruism contributes to a more harmonious world and a lighter soul. After exploring these 7 transformative methods of Stoicism, acceptance, letting go of judgment, letting go of control, embracing imperfection, emotional responsibility, practicing non-reaction, and selflessness, I hope you've come to realize that inner peace is not something distant or unattainable. It is available to all of us, right here and now, when we choose to live with awareness and purpose. These principles aren't just abstract philosophical ideas. They're practical tools you can use in your everyday life to face challenges with greater calm, clarity, and resilience. Each method is a piece of a larger puzzle that can help us achieve a calmer, more meaningful life that's more connected to what really matters. If you found this content useful and believe it can help other people, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. These small actions help spread positive messages and reach more people who are looking to grow emotionally and live more peacefully. Leave a comment sharing which method resonated with you the most. I'd love to hear your thoughts and stories. Let's continue this conversation together, because learning is so much richer when it's shared. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch and reflect with me. Remember, inner peace is not something you find, but something you build. See you in the next video.